thank you for making all the way through Max. It's the last day. There's a lot of you here. I really appreciate that. You don't look hangover at all. So my name is Stefano. I run Augmented Reality for Adobe. And this is Elizabeth.
I'm the Principal Product Marketing Manager for 3D and AR. Super happy to be here.
And today we're going to take you through the journey of AR as a storytelling medium and talk about Aero. But before we start, how many of you have heard about Aero before? How many of you have already downloaded the Aero app?
Nice.
Okay, quite a bit. So for the others, you're welcome to do it. It's free. We would love to hear from you all the feedback that you have, and I hope you will have even more feedback after the presentation. So yeah, let's get started. So we are the Aero team. We do a lot of crazy things outside work because the Bay Area is an expensive place. So sometimes we have to add a little bit of an income. This is the team. It's good actually that there's no audio on this one. I think it's better for everybody. But you can see some of us. This clearly was not right before Max because we have looked a lot more stressed than we were. So this is most of the team. You can find us around the corner at the JW Marriott every evening, trying to round up a little more cash, as I said. Okay, let's jump right in. Elizabeth, take it away.
Let's do it. So super happy to be here. We're going to be talking about storytelling first, like where storytelling comes from, what has been successful in storytelling in other medium, and what we can take from storytelling learnings to think about as we develop the new medium of AR. And then we'll talk about Adobe Aero, what it is, how it works, how we can use it, and how some of our favorite users and people from our community have been using it. I think we're just going to try to figure out how to solve the sound, but I'll just get started in the meantime. So thinking about storytelling and what even makes up a story, where does the story origin from, what makes a story, and what is the story of the word story in itself. And I like to think about its pure origin, historia. It's the Greek word that comes from that concept, and it refers to the idea of investigation and really researching, knowing the narration of the past through facts and events. And it's actually the same root for history and story, and in some languages, those two words are actually exactly the same. And what's really interesting is that today when we talk about a story, usually we refer to something that's not necessarily real, that's maybe imaginary, something that is maybe a rumor, a gossip. And at the same time, history is about looking for truth and is about looking for what has been really defining our past and the reality. So just to get started, I like for us to think about the concept of reality and non-reality sort of merging and how they've always been sort of, having blurry lines, and how that's actually going to be super relevant for a new medium like augmented reality, where we're going to be combining something virtual, digital, and the physical world around us. So let's dive in. Where stories come from, and let's start at the very beginning. There's been a lot of different theories. I'm not sure if you guys have read books like *Sapiens* or other work by Yuval Noah Harari, who has been doing an entire thesis about the fact that fiction has been one of the reasons why modern civilization has been developing the way it has. But we like to think about stories going through different phases and evolving through a different medium. So it started with a lot of oral stories that were shared orally, obviously then written through manuscript, printed and shared more broadly, democratized, and then recorded with audiovisual media, videos, colors, sound, and then they extended to the old digital channels where they were shared broadly via internet so that everyone could access that. And then we're seeing in the last few years, really a rise of micro stories, social stories. Everyone becomes a storyteller. Everyone wants to share their own stories. And that, again, has been sort of a big revolution, a big disruption, the way we've been thinking about storytelling. And we see the next level of evolution and the next sort of change in storytelling happening from an immersive perspective, like really thinking about how the audience becomes the actor of the story and the subject, and not just like passively listening to a story or watching a story, but really deciding how it unfolds. And so it's a little bit like taking what we've been seeing in the video game world and really thinking about how that's going to impact all kinds of stories today through new medium like augmented reality, for example. So thinking about how powerful stories can be, and I like this example of like a very old stories that's been really standing, doing the test of time, and like it's just been millennia of talking about this really incredible, unrealistic story, and yet we all know what it is. If we try to synthesize like what makes up a good story and how it can impact the world and be so powerful, what we know is that stories can be, improving awareness, really transforming the way we think about something, changing a perspective, allowing for more empathy, or, learning something in a way that maybe real life wouldn't teach you something. So really like sharing a value system, inspiring to take action. Like stories can be extremely powerful, as you all know, and they're all around us. So it's an art, it's a really powerful tool, and whether they're based on reality or not, they've been the drivers of some of the most impactful changes. So thinking about how do we make these stories really powerful, and taking some examples of popular culture, literature, cinema, of stories that have really shared something new and innovative. And I wanted to start with the elements of what makes those stories really, really good. And the first thing that comes to mind to me is a realistic quality of story, and how can we make those scenarios believable when they can be so crazy and so different. So thinking about how VFX has been evolving in Hollywood, for example, in movies, but also popular TV shows, and how they've been enabling the audience to really experience unrealistic things in a very powerful way. So talking about how AR will change the world. We have this other video that Stefano is going to talk about for a little bit about what a world could look like when we have AR integrated in our everyday life, which is still something that a lot of people are wondering, how will this look like for me? So let's hope it plays with sound. There we go.
Play music.
Okay. There's been an update to your calendar.
Show calendar.
There's an accident ahead. Should I show you an alternate route?
Yes. Show bio. Save to libraries.
Oh, hey, Jordan.
Hey, Rory.
Yeah.
I saw this on my ride in. Might be cool. Climb half down. Up.
It seems that you're making lasagna. Should I turn on the oven?
Yes. Preheat oven to 400. Open preferences.
All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this little sneak peek into the future. This is just a best guess, so we don't know if that's going to happen exactly in this way, but it gives a lot of ideas about how augmented reality can really transform our everyday life. And so we started a few years ago building Aero for creating some of those experiences that you have seen. Our Zen is to enable creative people to tell interactive stories using digital content set in the real world. That's what we are here to do, and that's how we want to enable all of you guys to create beautiful interactive experiences in AR. And the three pillars that we have are around interoperability, so the ability to get assets and content, 3D models, Photoshop files, vector graphics from illustrators, and ingest all of them very easily. We found that this was the #1 problem when we surveyed several thousand people to really bring the content in AR. We also are focusing on interactivity and animation, and I'll show some demos later. We want to enable beautiful interactive experiences without the need to code. There's only 5 to 10 million people in the world that can code, and we want to allow hundreds of millions of people to tell their story. And then third is the ability to publish. For AR, sharing is not as easy as posting on a website. There's a lot of foundational infrastructure that is missing. We are kind of where the internet was before basically the search engines and browsers, I would say, because you can't go to a place today and then query the overall AR content in the world. There's not such a way to discover that. So there will be a lot of those discovery layers and infrastructure created in the next few years. We are, of course, part of that, and for now, we're just allowing you to share those experiences with your stakeholders in the easiest possible way. That we will show again in the demo in a few minutes. But before we step into that, let's still stay at the meta level and understand how different is this medium compared to the previous ones that we have seen. So Elizabeth took us through this beautiful journey in the world of storytelling, and now let's zoom in and look at how camera controls have evolved, which is a pretty foundational piece of telling a story. So for photography and for film, live action film, the choice of where the camera is, what type of camera, and how the camera is moving is really key to tell the story. There are people that study their whole life how to do it, how to do the best cinematography possible. But then if we move towards the right into CG films where the camera can be edited at any given time and is not locked with that shot, or video games where the user starts actually having control on that camera, the scenarios are really changing very rapidly. So for video games, the game developers is constraining the camera to, for example, a character, but the user can move that character, and so with it can move the camera just along a predefined path. But for VR and AR, there are no limits. And so the trade-off here is between control and empathy. By giving up the control of the camera, it's kind of scary in some situations because the user could look at things in different ways from different point of views, can get really close or far away. But at the same time, by giving up that control, they feel more present. They feel like they are actually in the experience as opposed to being just passive consumers of that. And so there's a whole discovery that needs to be done around that. And we are part of the journey even ourselves because we are still discovering every day how people are going to use AR. And so far we have seen 3 big categories. The first one is art installations. I hope you had a chance to check out the 3D and AR village in the pavilion. It's at the far back or right side. And we had an art installation shown there at Descent. It was part of the Festival of the Impossible of last year, where you can get close to a bunch of little beds with your iPad, and then you will see that there are in AR people sleeping, and then you can see their dreams. It's really beautiful. And so we have seen a lot of use cases where people just want to augment an existing exhibition, an installation, and it's a very compelling one. There is this more standard design use case. For example, I'm building signage for a brand, for a new store. I want to see how that thing looks on the actual building. And so I can do that in AR. I can take a video. I can share the link of the experience with my stakeholders. And then in some cases, I can build deeper brand engagement experiences where there's more interactivity. The product can tell a story, can open up, and I can see the inside and so on. So those have been the 2 main use cases that we have been focusing for the last couple of years. But then we also found, I would say more accidentally, that people are also using for real-time VFX. video is the primary way people will share AR experiences because it's so easy and ubiquitous. And so we did some experiments, and then we wanted to really take it to the next level. So we built the Terminator booth. I don't know if you saw it in the 3D and AR village, but it's pretty cool. I'm going to play this very short clip.
So at the max activation, people are actually going to experience an augmented reality Terminator chasing them through a scene of the movie.
So you see a parallel between the actual Terminator movie and what is done in real time on the booth. And of course, it's different, but it's not dramatically different. So here in Aero, you can position all those this virtual set, and then basically everybody can just walk in the set, and then here we see a shot from the movie, and then here we see a shot from Aero. And so once you go through that experience, you end up with this 10 seconds clip of you trying to kill a Rev 9 Terminator with a Nerf gun, which I thought was pretty funny. It's a bit of an unfair ask, I realized. Yeah. For next year, we will have better weapons, but for this time, we wanted to keep it politically correct. So in the afternoon, we added also a water gun. That may help too. So go check it out. It's really fun, and it really gives you an idea of how AR can be used for really fun VFX applications as well. I hope they're going to go viral. But let's look now another aspect of AR. So we have talked about AR as a medium, new frontier of interactive experiences, and how we consume it. But what we discovered is that it can be used also for creating content. In fact, animating in AR is incredibly more easy to do than doing on a flat screen. For a very simple reason. If I'm making a 3D animation in Maya 3D Studio Max, I am manipulating my object in the scene, and I also have to manipulate my camera. In AR, the camera is in your hands because you have it on your phone. So there's no need for 3D controls and gizmos on that because it's a lot more intuitive. It's a problem that is already solved. And all the interaction you're doing is basically to scale, move, and rotate the object. So I'll show you some example shortly. And so we are trying to use AR to really solve the problem of creating the actual animated content. Everything in AR that is not animated is going to be stale and boring. And so we want to allow all of you guys to animate 3D stuff in AR without having to keyframe every frame of complicated 3D models or rigs, which is just not scalable. I mean, it's already pretty difficult to keyframe the motion of a rigid body in After Effects. We're not going to ask you to do a full character on your phone, of course. And so the way we moved beyond keyframes is by using Sensei and machine learning. So we can capture a large amount of data, motion capture data, animated data, and then we can have all that be learned by a neural network. And then we can expose just very simple high-level controls to you, so you become the director of the play, but you don't have to manually animate each single knee of each single actor. And so it becomes a lot more accessible, as we will see soon. And then the power of animation is combined with the power of interactivity without code. So we are trying to go beyond keyframes and beyond code, and we wanted to come up with a system that was as easy to put together as Legos, where everybody can put together 2 pieces, but then if you pile up a lot of pieces, you can create something pretty interesting and complex. And so we came up with this paradigm of trigger and action that is very intuitive. There are a lot of predefined triggers and a lot more predefined actions that you can combine, and you can layer as many as you want on top of each other, and then create a little bit more complex interactive experience. On the other extreme, there is code. There will be the ability in the desktop version of Aero to also code custom behaviors, but of course it's not required. And then if you have a developer friend who is doing that for you, they can share that trigger, that action, and then you can incorporate in your workflow without having to understand all the nuances of the code. In the middle of those two extremes sits the data flow model, which is something that we have, for example, inside some Substance Designer. But we found that it still requires like a programming mindset. So it was not as easy to pick up as we were hoping. And so that's why we moved into a simpler trigger action type of mechanism. Okay, I will stop talking now, and then I will do a few demos so you can actually see the thing in action. This one is the number 2. All right, here we are. So I'm going to start Aero and then create a very simple interactive experience here. So I located an anchor. So the first thing we do is locate an anchor in space. So my experience can be in a specific location. I can use an horizontal surface or vertical surface, or I can also use an image anchor. So here, if you tap on type, you can add an image and then have just your Adobe Max badge, for example, be your image marker that we are tracking. So for now, we just leave it as a surface. And then I'm going to start importing some content, and I will start with some Photoshop files, because I'm sure all of you have a lot of those. And so instead of placing a Photoshop file as a flattened PNG, which will be relatively boring, we have the ability here to actually spread out the layers and play with it. So there's a button. Every time you import a PSD, there's an extra button that appears in the UI that says layers. And then here is where you can space them out as much as you like. You can also change the vertical offset, the X offset, so you can really play with it and then make it into a pretty immersive experience with parallax and all that. And you've seen a little bit of the manipulation. So with one finger, I move around along the plane of the surface. With 2 fingers, I can rotate, and then I can pinch to change the scale. And then with 3 fingers, I lift off. And then if I go back, it will just snap on the plane. Now I leave it a little bit higher. There you go. So this is my backdrop of my AR experience about a toy store. And so let's get a little bit more content in here. I have a lot of starter assets. We have about 200 3D assets available to you for free as part of the application. So I'm going to add a little car. There you go. I'm going to place it here. And then I will show you with the car how I can create a very simple 3D animation. So all I have to do is tap on behavior, say that on start, this car will start moving around. And then for action, I want to animate. So I don't have any animation, so I will tap on create new animation. And then now I'm going to hold my finger down for 3 seconds. And then I can move this car around along the table. It goes over there, and then it comes back here. There you go. So you can see in white the spline that we created. I have some tweaks. I can make it a little bit smoother. There you go. And then now I can close this and then save as an animation and then apply to the car. So now when I start the scene, the car is moving around and it's coming back to the original point. So this shows you how easy it is to create a very simple 3D animation. But I can do more crazy stuff. And so let's do a layered behavior. So we are going to grab now this little wooden owl that I really like. We're going to place it here close to the forest where she belongs. And so she has some existing animation to fly around that I will use. And then I want that to play, let's say, a couple of times. We have some simple controls here to define the play of the animation. And then I'm going to layer another animation that I will create right now. So create a new animation. And then here again, I hold for 3 seconds. And so I have now my owl that is following some path. She goes back and then it goes back in there. So we're going to save the animation as well. And so now in the behaviors of the owl, I have now 2 layers of behaviors. They will happen both at the same time, both triggered by touch. And I can do something even more crazy. So now I add a third one that what it will do, it will actually scale up my car. So I can actually tap on the owl, but then as a subject of the scaling, I can use the car. So this is pretty cool because it allows you to create buttons, basically. You can tap on something and then something else can happen. So the car will get bigger when I tap on the owl. I don't know why I would want to do that, but this is just a good example. So now we got 3 layers, and then let's see how this looks like. So I tap on preview, and then the car is driving around, of course, because that was supposed to happen on start. And then now I'm going to tap on the owl, and then you see the car gets bigger, and then the owl is running away from that scary car. And so you have like the combination now of the animation and the flapping at the going on at the same time. There you go. Whoa, thank you. And because we always love to see what our community is creating, I will show you what came on the Twitter feed this morning that I found amazing. So this guy must have downloaded the app no more than like 10 hours ago, because before it was just now available. And so he created this beautiful layout AR experience. So you go close there, there's the logo of whatever real estate agency it is, and then created this little UI where there are basically 2D icons that when you tap on them, they scale up and down. The ease in and out is automatic, and then they cause the other object to rotate. So you can create like a very simple like product stories and showcases in just a few minutes, just by adding a few of those trigger and actions together. Okay. So I think we are good for this. I will show you just one thing that is more into the future, which is how we're going to take on animation beyond keyframes for more complicated things than just owls and cars. So I have here some magic experimental build. Let me see. Yeah, this is showing up. So some of you may have seen this during the keynote. We were showing off this interactive puppy dog. It's a 3-year-old Labrador that we actually motion captured in Vancouver a few months ago, and then we collected about 2 days of motion capture data. An animator cleaned up the data. We fed that data into our Sensei machine learning algorithm, and then we recreated a pretty lively dog that can really follow very simple controls. So we're going to add this puppy to the scene. There you go, here it is. So now I'm just moving this round target with my finger, and the puppy moves around. And believe me, like quadruped animation is the hardest thing in the world to do. And now I can really control it very easily. I think you got some food in that bag in there. Is it like a hot dog or something that he's going for? It's gotta be. He really wants that food. I'm sorry. And then you can see if I drag it far away, then it will accelerate and run faster. And then if I go stay close, it's gonna just walk around. So we incorporated like a lot of animations and motion capture. And if I go up and down, it can also jump, as you can see. It's got little jumps. There you go. It's really trying to go for that hot dog, I'm sorry. And this is all so intuitive. And I could just record all those animations that I'm creating on the fly, or I can make him in the future as my virtual host. So when I come home, you know, I have my little 3-month-old puppy that will never grow, will stay the same age, as cute as it is. And then I can greet me, can have like all kind of behaviors, playful behaviors that we can encode in that. So for next year, we're super excited about doubling down on this and really having like smart characters as part of our offering, as part of our starter assets, so all of you can use them. It's going to be super exciting. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you, this is like a word preview of that, is a sneak peek into the desktop tool that we are building, because we have that as well. And this is just to tell you that we are thinking about you, and we're trying to make the best that we can to ease the process of learning to create those experiences. So you don't have to create everything on your phone. I think I have to mirror, 1 second. Yep. So you don't have to create everything with your phone, holding up, for 8 hours during your workday. Your biceps will grow gigantic very, very fast, and you'll get very tired. We have a desktop tool that has very similar type of UI for 3D manipulation than Dimension, so it will look very familiar to you. And we'll have a lot more real estate to add stuff and behaviors. And then we'll have a play button that you can play and then test all your AR interactivity on a desktop tool. And you can still tap on stuff and things will happen and things will move around similarly to the phone. So we have a one-on-one mapping other than some things like proximity that we don't have because there's no world-facing camera. But we have already 100% compatibility through our cloud documents between the desktop and the phone. All right, and with this, I'll give it back to Elizabeth. Take it away.
Thanks, Stefano. So with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit more about demand readiness, both from a consumer and a creator perspective, because we are seeing huge signals on the market that this is a really a growing market with a lot of interest. So really, we think that AR is happening now. We know that 20% of mobile users in the US have already used AR, and this number is going to grow to up to 40% in the next 3 years. And those users are coming back at least 50% of the time on a weekly basis, which is pretty significant, as you probably know. And obviously, we need to mention that there's over 1 billion AR-enabled device in the world today, which is also why we are thinking about the potential for AR as a medium versus, for example, other emerging media like VR. Like there is really access to the technology that will enable people to consume and create AR as a medium. AR is also going into a lot of industries, like obviously gaming is a big one. This is a campaign for Minecraft. Minecraft has over 91 million users, and they are going pretty, obviously into AR. They want to empower people to go outside on adventures, as they say, and they also want to have more interactivity to really have people define the types of experiences that they want to take. But other industries are also concerned, whether it's education. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of examples in the e-commerce side and marketing in general. Lots of brands are creating AR experiences to cut through the clutter versus digital media, for example. And there is true value in being able to engage people with AR experiences. They can see something in real life before it's even produced or created. So we're going to see a lot more of these experiences coming to the user at a really mainstream level. On the other hand, we want to think about the community and where creators are at today and how interested they are. So we've just learned a little bit more about where the technology is at and what Adobe is doing to empower creators to get in this space, because so far it's been pretty focused on tools for developers or people with a little bit more coding skills, technical skills, which is not necessarily the way to see a lot of diversity in content, artistic content, for example, which is exactly why Adobe wanted to help through this transition into the new medium. And if we go back to some of the examples that I shared at the beginning of this presentation, where we're looking at much more mature media like cinema, where we're seeing these really complex and sophisticated experiences, for AR it's much more nascent. We're really at the beginning, and we're going to see things change tremendously in the next few years. So today what we're seeing is a lot more like vignettes, like the beginning of ideas that are going to develop and that are going to shape this medium. So again, a few numbers just to really anchor this example into some real data. We know that in 2019, there's over 1 million creators that have participated in the creation of content that will end up in an AR experience. That doesn't mean that they've actually put their hands on an AR tool, and we want to empower them to do that. We also know that this number is going to grow drastically. There's projections to up to 6 million in the next 2 years. And so it is going to be, really a significant part of the types of experiences in media that you see in the general use cases. I also want to talk about Adobe's Residency program. So there's an AR residency program that we're super excited to have. We've had over 10 established artists who've participated into the program in the last couple years. And those artists have really helped us develop the tools from a creator's perspective. Like they've given us insights and feedback so that we can make tools for creators. This is a beautiful piece by Marjan Mogadan, who was just doing a residency a few months ago. It's been seen over, I think, 1 million times. She was, showing it at the Venice Biennale and like many other places. She's been really involved in the process of creating Adobe Aero. And if I can quote her, she appreciates the fact that a tool like Aero helps us really sketch out ideas very quickly in the real world outside, away from her computer, which is great for more precision and power. But at the same time, eventually Aero is something that you're going to have to place into the real world. And so she talked about how powerful the tool was for her to explore how to be almost like a child again and just play and experiment and put things outside. So just to share some of her work and some of the things that she's been playing around in throughout her residency, these are 2 examples. They're all shot on phone, so obviously the format is like that. But it's really interesting how she plays with this idea of space and placing, digital assets into an environment and looking at how other people interact with it without even knowing that they're around it. For example, in this gallery where she placed some of her very typical signature female sculptures. She also played a lot with this idea of walking through a maze and being able to see, an AR installation at scale and how it feels when you are in the AR experience and you almost forget about the environment around you. I also want to mention Gabe, who we talked about a little earlier, who has this art installation on the show floor called Descent. He also did some explorations around transformation and how we can use AR to show how things evolve from a visual perspective, and especially with this idea of like art changing throughout times. And I really like this concept because it also shows that AR is not necessarily only future focused, it can also collect the memory and sort of transform the real world into a bit of a museum where we can really capture from a digital perspective things that are not permanent and things that are changing. So really interesting concepts that are being explored. Another piece from Gabe, also in a similar vein around time and space. It was about this idea of capturing memories and recording them in the physical world. So he had these little memories that he designed and placed them in these bubbles, and you could interact with them. But it just makes you think about how social media can evolve in the future. It may not be something that's just like sort of stuck behind a screen. In a virtual world, it may be something that's actually shared and placed, anchored into the physical world, and potentially open for like journaling. Like, how do you record all your memories and how you share them with other people?
What was happening at my house.
Sorry, these pieces are so good, I'm choking myself. So lots of beautiful, advanced pieces that explore AR in context. These are the more like aspirational level. Let's look at what people are doing today with Aero. So as you've seen, if we want to continue to develop this medium, we're going to have to also go beyond something purely 2D focused. And this is why Adobe is also announcing this category this year, 3D and AR, with tools that we've acquired earlier, like the Substance Suite, but also Adobe Dimension, so that you can start taking the experiences to sort of a next level. This piece was created by one of our ambassadors, Simul Alva. She did an Adobe Live session yesterday, which I highly recommend to check out. But very quickly, you're going to want to experience AR in the physical world in 3D. And so we're encouraging creators to start exploring 3D animation and really pushing the boundaries and going beyond what they already know. For that, we're creating a space for the community with the Instagram channel, new channel that you can follow called Adobe 3D AR, where we're going to be really giving a platform and a voices for all these users who want to explore the new medium and learn about it, because there's going to be a really big education piece. And also a gallery on Behance where you can see how Aero is starting to grow. And once you take AR into a 3D sort of format, you can see how you can create things that are completely out of your imagination, like the spaceship flying over Times Square that was also created in Adobe Dimension and then textured with the Substance Suite. And so we have this new workflow from Dimension to Aero that's like really seamless and easy, where you just can just export 3D into Aero very, very easily. So a lot of really beautiful examples. Again, it's the beginning. There are small vignettes, but we can see the potential and we can see how things are gonna grow. So I just want to wrap up, from a community and creative perspective. We want to empower those users to really start exploring those new media and take the risk, and it's totally worth the investment. We think that AR is going to be so much more than what some of the use cases that we've seen today, and just very traditional, visualization. We really believe in interactivity and being able to create much more complex experiences, and that's where we're creating a system with, a desktop tool and a lot of these workflows working with other Adobe tools. And we also think that the way this community is going to be successful is if they can really sort of create their own language, the same way we've created a language for literature or cinema. Like, what is going to be the language of AR, and what are going to be the concepts that are going to be used? So a lot of potential, super exciting moment in time where we're seeing the beginning. And just to finish and to wrap up, I'll let Stefano tell you a little bit more about the vision and what's coming up.
Thank you, Elizabeth. For 2020, we're super excited to really dive into the desktop. The private beta started 2 days ago. This is the link. You can sign up, and then we will slowly roll out access through the year. And then for 2020, we'll be focusing on learning, extensibility, and connecting with you, the community. Extensibility, we mean that we want to break out of just the trigger and actions that we are providing. We want to really connect into the Internet of Things and devices and sources of signals from the world, and really amplify what we can do with Aero. And then on the learning side, we have a user voice forum connected to the mobile app. And so you can go there and then vote for ideas or propose new features. We listen to that all the time, and we use that ranking to really decide what to work on next. So this is, at the end, a tool built for you guys. So please don't hold back. Send over all the feedback that you have, because we love to hear from you. And on that, I will just stop and open up for questions. Thank you. We got one over there. I don't know if there's a microphone, otherwise you can just be loud and I will repeat it. Do you have geolocation? So we don't have it right now, but it's something that we are looking to integrate, so people can create geocages or geofencing of experiences. Yeah, it's definitely on the roadmap. Yeah.
How about like dynamic sound?
Dynamic sound is already something we are working on, and it will come in 2020. So on the early side of 2020, I think. That's a great question. So are triggers only touch base, or can you create an anchor just by looking at an image? Trigger just by looking at an anchor. So if you're using image anchors, that is a trigger, and every time you see that image, it will pop up the full experience in the way that you have defined. So things on start may just hide and then come out very slowly, and so as soon as you see the image, that reveal will happen. We also have proximity triggers, so experiences can be triggered when you get close to an area or an object and then pop up. So that's what we have right now, and we're going to add more.
So it seems like right now it's kind of confined to a singular space. Are there any plans for, especially for, I guess, specific areas? Are there any plans to kind of make it so you can go around corners or create like a fully immersive turn-based kind of?
Yeah, it's not limited to one location. It's limited only to the fact that you want continuity. So I could create an AR experience in this room and then go outside the door and continue. As long as when I move around my phone, the phone is able to see features and still anchor the 6 degrees of freedom representation. That's totally fine. So what you will have to do is just walk around and then maybe pan the phone a little bit so it can gather enough features that over time as you're moving, it has always enough features to anchor the coordinate frame. And so if you have like white walls and white carpet, it's going to be very hard. But if you have like more texture, it's going to be easier. Yeah. Dynamic data, you mean like streaming from like an API and stuff like that? Yeah, it's definitely part of our extensibility roadmap, and we'd love to hear from you exactly what you will need so that we can build it properly.
Sorry. What does export look like right now? Like, is it confined to the app?
That's great. I forgot actually to show it. So right now you have 3 ways to share. The first one, most immediate, is you take a video and then you share the video with your friends. The second one is you create a link of that experience. That's the deep link, and it connects to our cloud document in the cloud. So if you send a link to anyone, like for Dropbox, they tap on it, they can download it on their phone and then see the full experience wherever they are with the Aero app. Third option is I can export a .reality file, and that .reality file can be opened natively by any iOS and macOS device. And so this way, the users don't even have to download the Aero app, and they will just open in Quick Look on your phone. You can also use that to embed it into an Xcode project. If you already have an app and you just want to add an AR features to it, you can create all that goodness in Aero, export the .reality, incorporate that in Xcode. Xcode will know exactly how all this interactivity has been created because we have a one-on-one mapping between what we do and iOS and macOS. Yeah.
What are the plans for Android devices?
Android devices, that's a question that, no surprise, we get a lot. Right now, there are about 900 million, roughly, devices that support AR Kit, and there's like 150 million that support AR Core. So Android has to catch up a little bit. It's definitely on our roadmap. We don't have a date yet, but for now, we're just waiting for the ecosystem to develop further.
If you set image anchors and then send the link, will they still be able to view it?
That's a great question. So when you load the experience, it will tell you, hey, you should be looking for this image. So you know, because otherwise, how do I know what to look for, right? And then if you pan around and you don't find anything, it will allow you to just put that experience on a surface. So if you don't have it, at least you can see the AR experience. Thank you, great question.
Is there any features that would let you scan something in your environment and then that would then become part of the experience?
So there are basically two ways. One is you can just scan an object and then bring that 3D object in your AR experience. We don't have an app right now, but there's a bunch of free apps out there that you can use for scanning objects. The second part is you can actually use the 3D object as a trigger. And so this is a capability that is available in ARKit already. We don't have it in Aero yet, but we are looking into it, where you can use, basically, you can scan a 3D object, and then when your phone is recognizing that object, the experience pops up, like you do for images.
What about just taking a flat image, say, a coloring sheet from a kid, and applying that onto a kid's cut, or something that's like physical, like you could be grabbing?
Yeah, so for this exact thing that you asked, Dimension is the tool. It does exactly this. You can take a cap, and you can take whatever flat image, and then we'll wrap it there.
Well, I guess what I mean is like the ability to share that ability with customers to let them view their own art on a cup.
Yeah, so once you have done this in Dimension has a fantastic engine to take Illustrator files or Photoshop files and then wrap like 2D graphics into 3D objects. And then you can move it, you can scale it, you can rotate it. It's phenomenal. And there's no other tool in the industry that can do that. You don't even have to have UVs on those 3D objects. It will just compute it for you. Once that is done, you can do export to Aero, and then it sends directly to your Creative Cloud, and then you can open up in AR. So Adobe Dimension added in this, I think now is in pre-release, so it's going to go out pretty soon, the ability to send anything in your Dimension scene to Aero. So it's a very nice feature. Okay.
So if we create something, we prepare an error and everything, we have a show where someone that has no knowledge about how AR 3D works, do they need to have an iPhone or the Aero app to watch and do the whole thing on their phone? Like how?
Yeah, so they either need to have the Aero app, or they just need to have an iPhone, and then you can share with them the .reality file, and it will just open. So it's natively supported by the operating system.
What types of 3D files are importable?
Right now we import quite a decent amount. So Photoshop had imported a bunch of 3D files, so all those formats are available, like OBJ being the most famous probably. Then we also import Collada, so you can have also animation, as well as FBX. We also import GLTF files. There's a lot available on the internet. And then we are looking also to extending import of USD files. Right now we only export USDZ. So it's already like pretty broad, and we're going to add more and more. You cannot import flat video files at the moment unless they are animated GIFs. And it's a bit of a tricky one, because what if I want to import in AR a 3 megabytes video file, right? And so everything else, like images and 3D objects, we can optimize the experience and everything, but video is the one that breaks a lot of things. And so before we commit to that feature, we are trying to understand what the use cases are. And in some cases, we found that there were ways to do the same thing with a 3D animated file that is going to be a lot lighter for the experience than dropping video in there. So again, please send us feedback. Tell us we want to really know about your use case so that we can build the right feature. All right, good. That was a lot of questions. Thank you very much. And enjoy Aero and send us feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.